Welcome back, guys. Now I hope you've been following each video step by step. We're now coming to the end. This is going to be the 5 roads cutting video. So this is where we now go from the longer lengths that we've been cutting so far down to shorter lengths, and I'll be doing it through the 5 roads method. I believe it's a nice easy way of cutting hair, but it allows you to control the length and the shape throughout without overcomplicating it. It's nice and straightforward. You will need a wider tooth comb as a beginner. That's just like a small clipper comb. It'll make it a lot easier for you as you're gliding through the hair and pulling the sections. We're not going to be too precise and too picky with these sections. We are going to follow a structure, we are going to follow a guideline, but by using a bigger tooth comb, it'll be easier for you to glide through the hair and pull nice, smooth sections. It'll also be a lot more comfortable for your client when you do start cutting live models. But it's important that you've watched the videos building up to this video. If you've jumped ahead now to watching the 5 rows cutting video because you're going to try and have a go on your mate, and you haven't watched the layered sections at the start, if you haven't understood the different shape and structures of a haircut, if you haven't tried the clipper cutting where you set your blend zones and your fade zones, then you're going to trip yourself up when you cut in the top. It's not just a case of just shaving the sides and cutting the top. It doesn't really work like that. We need to focus on cutting the hair into the shape of the style from start to finish. It's not just about cutting hair away, it's about what we leave behind. That needs to be our focus, that needs to be our psychology. We are cutting the hair into shape, we're not cutting hair off. Hair comes off, but that's not our focus. Our focus is cutting the hair into shape. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be doing a quick demonstration on my friend, and we're going to be cutting this a lot shorter. We've done the longer layers, we've done the pompadours, okay, we've done all the slick back styles working with longer hair. We're now going to start cutting this shorter. So we're going to cut it into maybe a bit of a quiff that angles slightly to the side, just so you can see how the 5 rows have to work towards creating that shape. And then we're going to be working back, taking that down, but we're going to be chipping into it and making it nice and textured and choppy, understanding how to control the shape and direction of the hair. And then once this video is finished, our next video will be on blending it in and styling it. So that's why I said at the start, it's important that you've watched every video because they've been broken down, but they all connect. Alright, so we've literally started with a long doll's head, and we've done styles from longer, gradually working shorter and shorter and shorter until we get to these last few videos. But these cuts are going to be the ones that you'll be doing more often in the barbershop. You won't be doing many long layered haircuts, but now you know what to do if those customers do come in. But these sort of hairstyles, the shorter, the choppier hairstyles, using the 5 road method, the clipper work and the fading that we've done in the last few videos, that's going to be your bread and butter haircuts. So watch them again and watch them again and practice them and practice them. Really focusing on visualizing the shape, the end goal, the direction of the clipper. Really focus on your methods, because that's what develops a good haircut. It doesn't matter how much of it you remember and how quick you can do it. If you're not creating the right shape or controlling the style of the hair, then your customer's not going to be happy. So watch those videos again, practice them until you're confident with your methods, until you see the cuts coming together before moving on to the barber development section. So let's move on and start the 5 rows cutting method, where we'll be focusing on textured hair, working forward to a nice, quiffed, longer fringe one to the side. So as you can see, I've added some moisture to the hair. I was protecting his face as I was spraying it on, because we don't want to get loads of water all over the customer's face. That won't be very nice for their overall experience. But when we're working with shorter hairstyles, we want to be starting at the front, so it's important that the hair is combed forward. That way then we can really engage the customer in the consultation, find out exactly where they want us to cut it, how much length they want to be taking away, how much hair they want to be leaving behind, how they're going to be wearing it, what direction they're going to be wearing it in. And to do that, the hair needs to be forward, and we can really show them in the mirror when we're cross-checking exactly how we're going to be cutting it. And while the hair's been directed forward, it's easier as we're combing through to get better tension on our sections. So a bit of moisture will allow us to comb the hair into position better and give us better tension when we're cutting. But you have to remember that when you cut the hair wet, it's longer than what it is when it's dry. As in, once that's dry, the hair will shrink. So we've got to be careful that we're not taking too much away. You know, if the customer says, oh yeah, take off about 2 inches, and you know I've only got 1 inch left, well when that dries it's only going to be 3/4 of an inch. So you've got to think of that before you actually cut. And as a rule of thumb, your hair grows ½ inch, so roughly the thickness of, say, a little finger. It grows ½ inch every 4 weeks. So if the customer doesn't know how much to take away, maybe we can ask them when they had their haircut last, and if they were happy with the length they had last time, then we can gauge then based on how long ago the cut was to know how much to take away. And that's ½ inch or thickness of a little finger every 4 weeks. So I'm just working from the crown at the back and just manoeuvring all the hair into position as it grows out of the crown. So we're following that shape as we're combing it through. So I'll just show you the crown now so you can see the direction I've combed it all into. Now most crowns grow out clockwise, so I've followed that clockwise direction as I've combed the hair all into position. That's the crown, combed into a clockwise shape, following its natural growth pattern. I've got plenty of tension on the hair now that it's been sprayed with a bit of water, and then we can start. Now remember, communication is key. Now when I'm teaching more advanced workshops, I like to train the barbers to start cutting at the top first. There's a few different reasons why that's important. One, if it's a new customer, it allows you to really get involved in the conversation from the start, engaging your customer into the haircut and really building that trust with them. So if we cut in the top first, we can instantly then start that conversation and find out exactly how much the customer wants off, how he's going to be wearing it, how he's going to be styling it, and we've broken the ice from the start. Whereas if we start on the side first and just clip everything away and just start cutting on the side, then there's not really a conversation. It's like, oh, you know, any holidays booked, or you know, you're just making small talk, and that's fine. There's a bit of small talk in barbering. It is what it is. But I think when you've got a new customer in your chair and they're going to be nervous and they want to be reassured that you're in control, if we start at the top first, then we can have that connection with the customer. You know, it gives us a good chance then to find out exactly how they want their hair styled, and we can cut it into that style before going on to the sides. And once it's in position, then all we do then is connect the fade to the top. But for beginner purposes, we have been sectioning the top off first just so we can focus on the side profile, because we are learning. You know, this is a new skill, this is a new trade, and this is why we've broken it down. But once you've just learnt the methods and you've built that knowledge of cutting, when we go on to the barber development section, then we might change it up a little bit to suit the real sort of barbershop environment, to be more realistic to the real world. But for the sake of learning a trade, we've done it the conventional curriculum way, where we've sort of broken it down. We've learned the sections at the start, we've learned the layers at the start, we've learned all the different cuts from longer to shorter, all the different methods from razor work to scissor work, and we've gradually brought it down just so you can build your methods and learn your techniques and skills. But now we've got the skills and we're learning as we're moving into the barber development section. Now we can start to sort of push our boundaries, step out of our comfort zone, really embrace that risk factor as we're really developing our techniques and methods by trying new things and really pushing ourselves. But for the sake of a beginner workshop, we've done the sides first, we've done the skin fades, we've done the clipper work, and now we're going on to the top. And that's fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with doing it this way, but I like to teach barbers that are working in a real barbering environment, in a real barber shop, to really engage with our first time clients by starting on the top first. If it's a regular client or it's one of your mates and he's in very often, then it doesn't really matter if you start at the top or the sides, as long as you're able to still produce a good haircut. If the top is overgrown and he hasn't cut it for ages, then it might be a good idea to cut the top first to remove all that excess bulk before cutting the sides. But I think it's a good rule to use the cutting the top first with new clients, just so we can engage them and just build that level of trust at the start, so they can then relax because they know that you both understand each other and you're working towards the same goal at the end. But anyway, that's enough rambling on. Let's get on with the cutting. So the crown now is in position. As you've seen, we've combed all the hair through and maintained a nice clean flow of direction with plenty of tension. And then we need to be doing the 5-road. We need to be visualizing the 5-road process. It would be a bit odd if we're standing behind the customer, we're doing this in the mirror. We don't really want to be doing that, but visually we want to be thinking this. And what the 5 roads is the palm of your hand on the crown, resting on the customer's head. Your middle finger is road 1. That controls the length that you cut the hair to. That sets your first guideline. rows 2 and 3, that one and that one, they generally then change depending on the direction of hair growth. So if we're going to be styling the hair to the right, then this finger generally comes up to the same height as the middle finger. If we're directing it to the left, then it changes position. So the height of the fringe will slightly adjust depending which way you're going to be styling it. That's very popular on like your quiffs and your comb overs and your partings. If you're doing something a bit more creative and a bit more layered like we're going to be doing today, it doesn't really matter. You can bring up rows 2 and 3 to the same height as row 1. That then will give you a nice square profile on top, giving you plenty of body in the fringe. So your rows 1, 2 and 3, that generally sets the overall height and length of the haircut. And then rows 4 and 5, they control the blend. Now these rows, the way you cut these change depending on the hairstyle and the hair type. Now because this is very straight hair, very similar to Asian hair, we will be cutting these in square layered sections, creating a blend as we work throughout the head. To blend these in as well with this sort of hair type, clipper over comb will be your best bet. Trying to scissor over comb, short, straight, thick hair is going to be very, very difficult. Clipper over comb allows you to control that shape a lot more easily. But if you wanted to wear this hair a lot longer on the sides and maybe disconnect it so it's a lot heavier sitting forward, then we don't want to be pulling these sections out square and taking all that length away, because then it'll just sit layered like the blend zone. It'll come up in that shape. So then we need to be bringing these sections down and bringing them out and cutting them in that direction to control the length then that's going to be worn forward. So if we wanted to keep the hair heavy, choppy and disconnected on the blend, we want to be bringing rows 4 and 5 down and cutting them horizontally. But if we want it fully blended and not heavy on the blend, then we can bring those sections out and we cut the square profile in. So that's done on rows 4 and 5. So that these zones here, these roads are cut slightly different depending on the style the customer wants. Alright, but this is how we do it. So we're going to comb all the hair through again, following the direction of the hair growth. Okay, so you can see now my scissors is locked away safely. If I've not covered this before, I can't remember if I have. That's how you cut. Your ring finger goes in the loop, little finger on the pin, and then the other 2 fingers then stabilising the body of the scissors. And the thumb movement then is all we need for cutting. So reciprocating is coming back and forth, while we club cutting new hair. Point cutting is we come up then more horizontally or more vertically to cut the hair. And if we're blending, we just want to be moving the thumb working up. Alright, but as we're cutting the top, we want to be wrist bent, 90-degree angle, so there's no strain on your shoulder. You don't want to be like this, because all this weight then is going to strain your shoulder. Just bend your wrist, and we're going to be cutting with a reciprocating motion, club cutting the hair into position, then at the end then we'll be point cutting to create texture. So let's comb all the hair forwards. We're combing through row 1, using my left hand or my other hand, scissors. So that's what I was going to show you, sorry, I've jumped ahead there. So holding the scissors, ring fingers in the loop, okay, and we just keep the scissors in that ring finger, but we leave the rest of our fingers go, and then we hook the other loop with a little finger. See that? And we lock it in. So that's how we keep it out of way safely. But for beginners, what I normally teach is just pulling the thumb out, keeping the other fingers in position, and then closing your fist to hold your comb with them 2 fingers. So once we've got that in position, we're going to comb through row 1, and we're using our other hand, so we're splitting them 2 fingers and catching the hair underneath the comb to create plenty of clean texture as we comb it through. And at this point, we'll be finding out how the customer styles his hair. So if he says I wear it down, then we don't want to be bringing the hair back here to cut it, because we can't see where it's going to be after we've cut it, because our focus needs to be on what we're leaving behind. Well, how would we know what we're leaving behind to suit the style if we're holding it back here? So most of the structure of the style in a haircut is done at the front. The customer cares about the style throughout the front of the haircut. Is it going to be worn up? Is it going to be worn down? Is it going to be worn to the side? Is it going to be parted? Do you get me? So we need to be finding out what the front is doing first, and that will then control how we cut the top. But for this demonstration purpose, he's going to be wearing it up and a little bit to the side, so we're going to be lifting it up to cut it. But if he was wearing it down, you'd comb the first section down, you'd engage with the customer in the mirror to find out roughly where it's going to be sitting. Now bearing in mind, if he likes to wear it, say, to his eyebrows, the hair is wet. When it dries, it's going to shrink. So if you want it cut on his eyebrows, bring it down a little bit further before you cut it. And once you've combed that section into the position of the style, we're not worried about what's going to be cut away, we're worried about what we're leaving behind. So once we've brought our fingers into the position of the style, whatever's left behind then can go. So we're not focused on creating the style based on what we're cutting away, we're focused on creating the style based on what we're leaving behind. And what we're doing is we're combing the first section into position, or maybe to the side a bit if you wear it to the side a bit, and then that first section then determines what we cut off based on the positioning of the style. Okay, but in this instance he's going to be wearing it up and he's going to be bringing it slightly to the side, and that's how we get our first guideline. So though this is a beginner tutorial on the introduction to barbering section, if you're a more advanced barber and you're watching this and you've been struggling with cutting the top or struggling with getting the right style because you've been focusing so much on profile lines and profile sections and trying to follow all these guidelines, and you're following so many guidelines and focusing so much on what you're cutting away evenly, you're not actually leaving anything behind to create a style. This method allows you to create the style from the start. So because this customer's going to be wearing it up to the side, let's do that with our first section. We bring our first section up and to the side, and then that will show us then what needs to go. Okay, so that's what's left behind. I've asked the customer roughly how much length he wants to leave for the style, where it's going to be sitting, and that then will control how much we cut away. But let's be realistic, for demonstration purposes, let's take a bit more off to make it easier for us to see what we're doing. So we're going to be having a textured fringe that's slightly quiff to the sides. I'm bringing that section to the side and then stopping. And then what we have left behind is what goes. And we're just going to club that off, reciprocating the club technique, keeping my fingers parallel to the head and square. Now based on the width that I've cut there, that's nearly rows 1, 2 and 3 in one shot. But we will work into those rows again just to make sure we've cut everything evenly. Now we're going to keep hold of that section after cutting it. Keep hold of it, don't leave go. Scoop through the comb, and then underneath the comb you lift up to find your second section. Now if you comb that back, you'll be able to see the bit that we've just cut. So that's going to be our general guideline then. And then from that first guideline we're going to work back straight all the way, keeping the head nice and vertical and parallel on top. So we can see there now what we've cut. What I'll do is I'll bring up the middle finger to that guide, and that then will support my scissors as I remove the longer hair behind. And it's the same again, we'll keep hold of that section, bring the comb into it, it'll automatically stop. We scoop the comb through and we lift, we come underneath with our other hand and follow the comb through to create that tension to find our next section. So you can see what we just cut. We're maintaining that nice vertical section and we're removing the longer hair from behind with the club cutting technique. So I'm just going to follow that all the way through to the crown. And on a mannequin head, this is why it's handy to use a nice wide tooth comb. It'll be hard for you to get a fine tooth comb through that. So combing that through, and each section we will see the section in front that we've cut. And we just need to be following that each time. And then the last bit on the crown, lifting it back up vertically and removing that. Now I don't want to follow that through the crown because we'll get the bottom half. So we've come to here. That was our last section. There, and we brought that forward. The section below that crown we will do on rows 4 and 5 because that will control how it blends. The section in front of the crown, the last bit as the crown starts, that generally sits on top, and then the hair that sits down, we cut it in rows 4 and 5. Alright, we don't want to start cutting this up there and then you won't be able to control then the overall flow and shape of the haircut. So that's row 1 done. From front to back, following the first guideline based on the style the customer wants. That's the key point here. So combing everything back into its correct position, nice and neat. before we then go on to rows 2. So we'll just lift through road 1, bring the comb into row 2. So as you can see, I'm coming to the side a bit more here now, so a bit more diagonal. And I'm finding row 2. I've also got some of road 1, and that's my guide. So I'm maintaining that nice square profile as we work across. I'm bringing it forward and out because we're going to be wearing it to the side slightly, and you can see then what needs to go. But my focus here is what we leave behind. So I've brought it into the position of the style, into the direction of the fringe when it's styled, and then whatever's left behind needs to go. Same again, keeping hold of the tension, combing through, underneath the comb with the other hand, picking that next section. You can see what needs to go. Let's club it away. As far back as the crown, but not after the crown. Combing that all forward, and then same with the outer road. But this time, if you remember, we're going to be wearing it to the side a bit, so rather than bringing it out this way, I'm going to be bringing it more forward, because eventually it's going to be directed over there once it's styled. But I don't want to bring it all over here, because then this would be just way too long. But rather than bringing it all out this way and cutting that off, this side then would be too short. So we've got to just think sometimes, well, if I'm going to be styling this to the side, that little section here needs to be a little bit longer. So I'm lifting it up rather than out like I did on the opposite side. But if the fringe is coming this way, then it's the same but opposite. So this side then comes out and this side comes up. So we've got a little bit more length here than we have there, but not too much and not too little. So that's the guide from road 1. And then I can just take away what's left behind. Keeping hold of that section, combing underneath, lifting through with the comb, directly up, so we're creating a little bit more weight on this side to frame that hair as it flows to the right. So look, there's roads 1, 2 and 3. We've got a bit of height on that fringe now, but enough length that we can just bring it forward as we dry it and just quiff it over slightly. We've kept a vertical section from front to back, and now we just need to work on the blends. But just for visual purposes, we're going to do that again, but on a different angle, so you can see exactly then how I flow through the hair. Okay, so now you see now how to cut rows 1, 2 and 3 from front to back. The only time that changes is if the customer likes to wear his fringe down. So the first road is pulled that way and you find your length. The second road then, after you've cut the first one in, you lift out. And then your third section, then you lift up. So you're kind of creating... So if you're cutting the first road in down, you're then creating this effect. So your first one's down there, your second section is lifted out, so it's layering to the first road, and then your third one's up. So you've got a nice layered fall on the fringe. You don't want to just go from your first line there to your next line there. You'll probably find there'll be a disconnection. That'll be a lot shorter than that. By bringing your first line down, your second section out, and then your third section up, it creates a nice natural fall and maintaining an even blend on the fringe. So now we've cut the top, we can move on to rows 4 and 5. Now we've got to be conscious, if we want to leave the fringe specifically longer, we don't want to be combing the fringe to the side on road 4 and chopping it all away, because once we leave go of that, this section of the fringe is going to be tiny. So we've got to separate that fringe bit. So we're going to lift the fringe out, and then we're going to comb the section behind away. So we can make sure then that fringe isn't being cut. So if I just turn that to the side a bit and do that again. So we're going to bring our fringe out to where it's going to be sitting in the style. Okay, probably could take a little bit off it if it feels a bit too long. Only slightly. And then we're going to comb that section behind and remove the fringe from the side. Because we don't want to be cutting that fringe from there in here because it'll be too short. So then from there back, to create a blended square layer, we then lift the hair out. And as we're lifting it out, look, you can see where we cut on the top. You see the shape that's created. We bring that down to the side where it's going to be sitting. Remember now we've got to cut the hair into the shape of the style. So we bring it down to the side. You can see what was cut last. So I bring my fingers out to the shortest bit from the top, and then I'm angling my fingers down into the side, and then we can see then what's left behind to take away. I'm just going to work up following that square shape, removing that excess hair. Okay, keep hold of that section, comb through until you stop, follow the hair then with your other hand to the next section. That's the shorter bit from the bit we cut on top from rows 1, 2 and 3. We bring the fingers into the shape we want to create in the blend, and whatever's left behind, then we can remove it. So I'm maintaining that square shape with my hands. I'm controlling the shape of the blend with the shape of the sections. And we're going to follow that around then from underneath the crown. So keep hold of that section, combing through until it stops, come down the comb with the opposite hand, pick your next section. Keep hold of that in nice vertical square sections. Comb twice if you need to. And this technique here will start to create a blend. It'll remove all the excess hair throughout the side of the head, and it'll start to sit more blended. All then you'll need afterwards is to refine it with a bit of clipper over comb, or depending on the hair type, a little bit of scissors over comb. But you can see already how that's looking more blended. Now as we come round to this side, it's going to be more awkward to cut it like that because your hand can't get that 90-degree angle. So as you come here, you see what I'm saying, you can't get it. So what we do is then we come round and we pull it out that way, because that way then we can control the shape of the hair more easily. So you're more than welcome to come back to the start here and work back, or just follow these sections round from there and keep coming. I would say always come back to the start, because that way then you can control what you're leaving behind. You can move the fringe out of the way, you can comb down the section from behind the fringe, so we don't compromise the fringe when we cut it. Okay, so the fringe is removed and protected, and then we can pull these sections out square, blending in rows 4 and 5. Okay, so I've removed the fringe from the side profile, but it's important that we do have hair coming in from rows 2 and 3 so that we can see our guide as we're setting the shape. So if I just pick that first section and come over the top with the comb, so I'm coming over and then hooking. I can hook that section out, come in with my fingers, bring the finger out. You can see then there the guide from the roads on top. I can then just bring my knuckles against the scalp, follow that guide then all the way down, removing this excess hair. Keeping hold of that section, combing from the top, around, and then following underneath with the opposite hand, picking the next section. There's our guide, look, from the sections on top, from rows 2 and 3, and then we follow that down. So I'm combing it a few times there just to make sure the tension is right, and I'm keeping hold of that section as I go to find my next section, connecting all the hair evenly, but still allowing me to flow comfortably without struggling to pick nice, precise sections. This way I can just glide through the hair more easily and still blend it in as I'm going. So we do have a little bit of a ridge left on both sides, but that's what we then blend out, clipper over comb or scissors over comb. So because we haven't taken the top too short, you can still see we've got plenty of hair to layer and wear forward if they want to wear it forward, but we have cut it into the shape of wearing it up. That has been our focus. Now the length has been cut in, we now need to add texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the back and work forward as I'm adding texture, rather from the front. It allows me then to be a little bit more precise with the texture that I'm adding, and it stops me from grabbing too much hair. We've cut the hair into shape. That was the important part at the start. Now I can flow through the hair from back to front, cutting texture in with a point cutting technique. Okay, so we're going to be starting just in front of the crown. We're still going to be following the 5 rows method, but rather than pulling from the front fringe and working back, or we're cutting into a big chunk of hair when we're point cutting. Club cutting is different because we're just cutting it away. But when we point cutting, we've got to cut into that body of hair, and we don't want to be cutting the same texture in from here as we do from here. We don't want to be grabbing like 3 inches worth of hair. We want to have nice different sections and layers of texture, so it's important then to pull cleaner, smaller sections. So I'm going to start just in front of the crown. I'm going to comb across with my comb forward, keeping hold of that section, and then scooping that bit out. Just like when we were doing with the longer hair and the pompadour hair, we were starting at the back and working forward. It's going to be the same process. We are following the 5 rows, but we're just going to be point cutting. So I'm going to keep hold of that section, but rather than bring my fingers all the way up, I'm going to keep them halfway down. If I wanted to remove a lot of length when I was point cutting, I would keep my scissors diagonal and I would cut into it like that. But because I just want to be thinning it out, I'm going to be more vertical and I'm going to be cutting into it like this. Now the trick is you come in with the open mouth and you rest on your middle finger and then you cut as you're pulling away. And that way then you're not going to cut yourself because you're not cutting coming in. You're cutting going out. Alright, so let's zoom in on that so you can see it better. That first one's done, we can just comb new sections then across as we work forward. And it's just being careful you don't cut as you come in. It's easy enough to do, and that's generally when you will cut yourself. You want to be coming in and cutting as you're pulling away. And you can see now we're creating a nice choppy jagged edge. We're going to keep that as we work forward. Outer rows. If you can see, look, I'm cutting against the direction of hair growth. So as the hair grows out this way, I'm cutting in that way. When we come to this side and I bring the hair out, I don't want to be then cutting from this angle because I'll just be taking all the length away in that direction and we're losing the shape then, because this side the shape's like that, and that side the shape's like that. So as we bring the hair out, we need to then work around with our scissors and make sure we're cutting the right angle into the hair against the direction that we're holding it. If you prefer to work from front to back, there's no right or wrong way. I just think that sometimes cutting from front to back, you hold such big sections of hair, you don't actually get to add enough texture to it. When you're working from back to front, the sections are a lot smaller and you can really focus on that one area then as you're adding texture. So look, as we're bringing this out, we just need to bring the scissors round and then we cut in on this angle to make sure that we're not removing all the hair accidentally. And that's the 5 rows club cutting and point cutting. It's quite straightforward. And as long as you focus on the hair we're leaving behind, directing the sections into the shape of the hairstyle, and make sure you comb it through enough times so you've got nice tension on your sections, I guarantee you that you'll cut it into a shape that the customer will be happy with. I know you can't quite see the outcome yet because you've only seen it being cut, but you haven't seen it finished. We'll be covering that in the next video. But that's it. 5 roads, front to back, following the sections of your fingers and cutting it into the shape of the style. At the end of club cutting it, point cut it vertically or diagonally, depending on how much hair you want to remove, to then create that choppy textured edge. In the next video you'll see us blend it in, clipper over comb, and then you'll see a style in it, and that will basically be the end of the introduction to barbering section. So as long as you've followed all the videos and you practice them, and you've grasped all the techniques and it makes sense to you, I can't see why you're not ready to move on to the barber development section where we cover more advanced techniques, cuts and styles. So I hope that's helped. That was 5 roads, club cutting and point cutting, and the next video is going to be blending and finishing. Thank you very much.